let's face it, with this lineup that the Bruins have and all the free agents they signed, one year, $1 million, 1 year, $1 million. This is not the end of the line for guys that get sent to Providence.
Not at all.
There's, if the more movement, the worse the team's playing, the worse the situation the season's starting to look. I get that part, but they're there for opportunities, and they may still get them. We'll see.
Pucks with Haggs is brought to you by Fanduel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Welcome to another edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my stuff at joehaggerty.substack.com, writing daily about the Boston Bruins. Obviously, I'm also got the podcast here on the CLNS Network, and per usual, we have him on as a pretty regular guest, my buddy Mick Colageo. Mick, thanks for coming on the show, and tell people where they can find your work right now.
Okay, so I am now have revived my old Rink Rap blog that once upon a time was hosted by the Standard Times in New Bedford, but since we have no official relationship anymore, and they don't do blogs anymore, I've revived it independently, and I can now be found at rinkrapmc.com. And I link to it on X, formerly known as Twitter, on a regular
I'm going to still call it Twitter, Mick. I'm not bowing to Elon Musk and calling it X. So feel free to call it Twitter too.
Yeah, or just X Twitter.
Yes, or Twitter X, whatever. But thank you very much, Mick, as always, for joining us. Let's give a quick thanks to our sponsors, Factor Meals, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. Delicious meals ready in 2 minutes. Made by chefs, healthy meals. My wife loves them. I think they're tasty too, even though they're healthy, which is always the challenge. So check out Factor Meals. And as always, Fanduel Sportsbook. Right now, $200 in bonus bets, win or lose when you place a $5 bet. Go to fanduel.com/Boston. Get all the info. Football's in full swing, so get on your FanDuel account and get going. Nick, well, let's just dive right into it. Where this is going to be a podcast we're recording on the weekend, so it's right after the Flyers-Bruins game. We've seen a few preseason games now under the Bruins' belt. We can start to make some evaluations on what we've seen. Just anything that's on your mind after that Flyers game about what you've seen to this point as training camp sort of hitting the middle portion rather than the beginning.
Matt Poitras, the Bruins made him, he was one of the players the Bruins made available after last night's game. It was obviously past his debut, put a couple in the net, including a hilarious goal. This was the funniest moment of last night's game, just as an aside. Joe Farabee.
Just an absolute frozen pizza. I mean,
he makes this lazy play.
Just a total
leave
pizza.
The puck for his defenseman.
Yes.
What's his name? Igor something.
Yep.
And I can't remember the last name. I typed it last night successfully, but I can't remember it now. Anyway, Pasta just decides to, I think that one's for me. Yep. And he goes in there shootout style, kind of slows down where he drags one skate on a toe, and then he just deftly, tosses it over the glove side.
And Farabee was right in front of the benches when he threw that frozen pizza right in the middle of the ice. So I'm sure he heard it from the Bruins side.
Here's the best part. This is the best part. Farabee skates to the bench, to the gate, the far gate near the blue line. Yep. Goes right down the runway.
Oh, yeah.
Like he had been handed a game misconduct. He just kept walking and disappeared out of sight. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I'm sure he snapped the stick against the wall and was going nuts in the runway. There's no question about that.
Yeah, it was really great. Just the whole scenario where you make that kind of a turnover. Torts, his evil stink eye is looking down from the 9th floor. And you're thinking, oh God, so off he goes.
And to his credit, Farabee scored a goal in the game. He had a bunch of battles with Brad Marchand. It wasn't a terrible game for him, but that was just embarrassingly bad
moment.
Preseason turnover. There's no question about it.
Yeah. So Poitras, I thought, the Bruins, they were being outshot 11-1 when the Flyers finally got a goal. They stunk the first half of the first period. They really picked up their game over the second half, maybe the last 8 minutes of the first period. But I thought that it was the first time I thought that Poitras looked to me like he was feeling a little beat up by the whole experience. And his third period, he had a play where he had the puck probably less than 10 feet inside his own blue line near what would be the right point for the Flyers. And the puck was on his backhand, and he played it like he thought a train was coming. He tried to lift a little backhand out of the zone. That puck, I don't think, traveled 6 feet. It went 3 feet in the air and nowhere. And the Flyers, and it was a turnover. And I'm thinking, like, wow, there was nobody there and he didn't know it. People talk hockey IQ, awareness, all this stuff. Not on that play. He comes back later in the period, kind of late in the game, actually. He was out there with Marchand. And he puts the puck off the boards to himself, skates inside, barely wins the race, which was good, gets to the corner, battles, doesn't fully win the battle, but by then Marchand's on the other side of the battle. They wind up getting the puck, and Marchand is, get it, relay it, boom, boom. Now all of a sudden McAvoy's bearing down right point like that. And yep. It was really a good play for Poitras to bounce back with, but overall I thought his game looked a little tired.
I agree. Definitely there were points where I thought not even tired, but just, I think maybe a little overmatched by the bump up in intensity, physicality, like all of that stuff. I think he looked a little more like he was 19 years old to me in this game. But all that being said, he still almost won it in overtime with a backhander to hit the post. He made a great play that almost won them the game. So
he competes.
Yeah, and the skill is definitely there, and the offensive upside, and the ceiling can't be denied. But to your point, he was 5 for 16 in the faceoff circle. As a squirts coach, the play that you're talking about, I'm getting on my squirts players, my 10-year-olds, when they try to make backhanded plays in the defensive zone, and trying to get it out using their backhand. And I want, even at that level, you want them making strong forehand plays. You don't want them trying to, flip it out right up the middle of the ice. So that's the kind of thing. And this happens a lot of times with the OHL guys where they are so good at that level, they can get away with certain things that once they get to a higher level and they get to the NHL, they need to cut a lot of those bad habits or those kind of plays out of their game. So that's definitely part of it too. And, I think this is just naturally what happens. Like, this is the circle of life, the flow of existence in the NHL and training camp is the 19-year-old kids look very good their first couple of games out. And then as the games get ramped up, as more NHL players get in the lineup, as it gets more physical, more intense, more like NHL games, you start to see some of those chinks in the armor and you start to see some of the flaws in their games or the things they need to work on. Yeah. Or what's making them
develop from.
Yes, or what's making them not quite ready to come out of the oven for the NHL yet. He needs to go back to the OHL.
That may be, and this is a snapshot. So I want to be fair to him. He's had a good camp.
Yes,
I have not been disappointed at all.
No, I
just feel like last night was maybe a hint of a reality check. But I do want to see him again and see if this is a trend or if there's a pushback game coming from him, because I've felt like going into this whole thing that this kid was ready for his 9-game stint and to see what he can do with it. And because then you get the longer view of that same snapshot and try to get an idea where he is. But boy, the kid can play. I think he's the real deal. And it's just a question of whether or not he's ready.
Yeah, he doesn't get a chance centering Brad Marchand for that game last night if he hadn't looked very good to this point in training camp. They're not going to put him in that position unless he's shown enough that they feel comfortable putting him there and putting him with 63 and see what it's going to look like if he were centering in a line.
Because he and DeBrusk need a center.
Yes, they do.
And and now they have a plan, but I guarantee you it's in pencil.
No, of course, because they need a center with skill. Brad Marchand wants somebody that can get him the puck, that can play with him intellectually, hockey IQ wise. And, Poitras has a lot of that stuff. He's got very much the good intangibles, the hockey IQ. He sees the ice really well. He knows how to make plays. In theory, he'd be a great fit. It just looks to me like, and I expected this to be the case, he's not quite physically ready to do it yet or mentally ready to do it yet over the course of an 82-game season. Maybe he gets that look like you're talking about. I'd even be surprised if he gets the 9-game look to start the season. I think he may end up being he'll be all the way through camp and then be one of the last cuts. We'll see.
I think he's closer than Joe Thornton was in his 18-year-old season.
Totally.
But I also think that, that was one-way traffic. That was a big kid who needed to grow into that big body, and being around the big team made sense.
Yeah, he looked like a big St. Bernard puppy out there, Joe Thornton.
That's right. Yeah, a little late to the party and a little too friendly. And
it's true. It's very
anyway, but so it's a different situation and a different strategy if they feel like. But I have a good feeling that he's going to get his, what is it, 8-9 games that they're allowed to look at a guy before you burn a year of his eligibility to for the age requirements for UFA.
We do have Factor Meals to help us out. America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit when it does get busy, when it does get crazy, when we do need a quick meal. They fuel you up fast with flavorful and nutritious ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. Takes less than 2 minutes to cook them. They're fresh, never frozen. Meals ready in 2 minutes, like I said. They have calorie-conscious options, going upscale with some of the things they're offering now, like surf and surf meal options, roasted garlic filet mignon, and shrimp and Cajun spiced shrimp and salmon, which is like right in my wheelhouse. This is the kind of stuff I'm all about. So it's got everything for everybody. There's 34 plus chef prepared, dietitian approved weekly options for meals. You can get snacks, you can get breakfast items. Like it's a great deal. So if you want to get Factor Meals, go to factormeals.com/Haggs50 and use the code Haggs50 to get 50% off of your first box. It's a great deal. I've tried it. It's fantastic. I recommend it to you. We love these ready to make meal kits, especially when we're on the go with our kids. So one more time, that's factormeals.com/Haggs50 to get 50% off your first box. You won't be sorry if you go to Factor Meals. It gets the Haggs thumbs up seal of approval. And you knew last night watching that game, it was preseason. It felt like preseason. And that play in the third period where the Flyers got the tying goal, Jeremy Gaucher, I don't even know who he is. I don't know if he's related to Dave. I don't know what his story is. But he beats Kevin Shattenkirk and Brad Marchand in one-on-one battles for the puck and then throws that puck up the middle to Bobby Brink all alone for the game.
Bobby Brink was a nifty player there.
Yeah.
That kid had he reminded me of the kid that they played against the other night, Benson. He had like that ability to do very mature, deft. They look kind of Merkulov has that too.
Well, I looked up Benson after the game because I was fascinated, and I didn't know his family is a traveling carnival family. They own a traveling carnival in the summertime. So he spent his entire life traveling around to carnies in Canada, like setting up the carnivals, doing the fried dough stands, like all that stuff. While he was doing hockey camps all around Canada, he would do hockey camps like during the day in all these spots around Canada. And then at night he would be working the carnival with his family. So that kid's a fascinating story. And I can't wait to hear more about him because he can play too.
So he's going to play for about 18 NHL teams then.
Yeah, probably. And then he can work the Ferris wheel afterwards if it doesn't work. If he ends up in the coast, he can go back to work in the Ferris wheel. It'll be no problem.
He'll be the Mike Sillinger of the 21st century.
Absolutely. But I was impressed by Bobby Brink. I actually looked him up last night too because I didn't even know he went to the University of Denver. He wasn't there when Monty was there, but definitely an impressive player. The Pioneers alum. He had a good game. He looks like he's ready for NHL action. A couple other things from last night's game. I do agree with you on Patra. That was one thing that I mentioned. The face-off thing really stuck out to me as something notable and worth looking at, in addition to some of the other plays he was making. Anthony Richard also got a top six look got a top six look in that game last night with Pavel Zacha and David Pastrnak. No shots on net, really didn't crack the box score at all, except for a -1 in about 11 or 12 minutes. So it feels like he got his look last night after he looked fast and looked pretty good in training camp and, really didn't do much with it. So he's another one that I think had a chance to maybe show something in that game last night and didn't really wasn't able to take that step.
I don't think they were looking at him the way they look at Patra.
No, not at all.
It's kind of like looking at the pretty girl and saying, yeah, she is really pretty. And then there's the other one that kind of makes you fumble and bumble and be nervous, and really, I think that in the case of Rocket Richard, you do remember that on Nesson, right?
Yes, I do.
A few sideline reporters ago.
She will live on in infamy, that Rocket Richard.
She took a header at the Bell Center after making that report and tweeted about it. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the forum goes surreal. So any case, but yeah, I thought that was. I think you're spot on about Richard there. I think that was a reward kind of opportunity. A lot of guys in these situations, we want to see everything. we want to see more of you right here. We want to know if you can make it. And then there's, you deserve this. It's, like I think Lauko gets some, you deserve this kind of stuff after. I mean, he got his claw cleaned. He hung in there. He gets up. He tries to fight back and takes another shot. I mean, that kid is tough.
He's super tough. And he's going to get, and this happened in Providence, he's going to get some injuries along the way because of the way he plays and because he's that tough and because he's pretty fearless.
He skates low, too. If you see him walking around the locker room, he's not as short as he looks on the ice.
No, it's true.
He's a low skater, a little like Ted Donato. Ted Donato was like his back was always parallel to the ice when he skated. Yep. Other people are more straight up or angular. But Lauko's so down there that you'd think he was like, Steen size or something when you, I shouldn't say Steen size, you say height. Because Steen's legs are like tree trunks.
Quadzilla. Maybe some people should be skating a little more with their backs down like that, like Lauko, because he's one of the fastest guys out there every single time he's played.
Yeah, it works for him. I mean, there's always guys like you. You're an ADM now, so you know about this thing about technique and all the edges and all that stuff. And you're teaching kids, and that's great. Yep. Love what you're doing. But there's I remember Dave Forbes in the 70s. His feet were so far apart, it was hard to imagine he was going to be that fast, but he was wicked fast. And one of the fastest guys the Bruins had. And, and then there's other guys who skate more like that video of the guy coming right at you where the skate touches down in the middle and slowly goes out to the side. There's different styles.
Snap into action this NFL season with Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Finn played for this top speed hockey team. It's a summer tournament team in the summertime. He played in the CCM Summer Invite Tournament. It was a AAA summer tournament, like awesome teams. One of the kids on his team was a kid from New York, very good player. I think he was from the Mid-Fairfield, Connecticut team, who they have some very good club teams out there. The kid had the widest base when he was skating, as far as the setup goes, but he was flying. I couldn't believe he was that wide with his base, and he was like the fastest there. It was fascinating to me. I don't know how he was doing it, but it was amazing to watch.
I know I can't when I skate. I don't want to be that wide. I do find though that if I get myself down a little bit and just get my butt a little closer to the ice, then suddenly I'm taking my corners and I'm picking up speed that's all of a sudden feels a little scary. It's kind of like the first time you drove on the highway, sort of.
Exactly.
So, but but Luch, one of the things I noticed with him was when he got back here after all this time gone, he still has that running start when he skates, but he doesn't take nearly as many lightning fast steps as you used to just see his feet disappear under him with, the little like a cartoon as he'd go up the ice. And now it's more like you can actually discern each push, which means that, the old guy's slowing down a little bit. He still tries to generate, and he's probably getting better at generating off each stride, but he definitely doesn't burn as much fuel getting off the ground as he used to.
He's conserving. That's all right. We want to see that at his age. That's fine. Another guy that played last night and has gotten a bunch of looks here in the preseason to date, Mason Lohrei. Maybe just your thoughts on him to this point and what you noticed, if anything, last night. I continue to like what I've seen. I thought he looked very good with Carlo in that Buffalo game, even if it was 25 minutes instead of 29 minutes, as it was mentioned in the game sheet. Skating with Charlie McAvoy last night, against with some NHL players in that lineup. And they have matched him up against the other team's best players pretty much every time he's been out there for at least portions of the game. For him and for the Bruins, I feel like they're looking much more at the defensive aspects of the game with him to see if he's ready to handle that kind of stuff rather because they know the puck moving, the power play stuff. Like offensively, I think he's going to be able to make an impact once he gets his confidence. You can see the skill. You can see even though he's not the fastest skater, his edges are really good. And he's clever about the way he can get the puck up the ice. He's good at first pass, you know, all that stuff that you want to see out of a defenseman like him. I feel like it's already there. And it's apparent just how much better he is moving the puck than, say, a guy like Brandon Carlo when they're both out there in a pairing together, and you see the two of them sort of in the way they're moving the puck up and the way they're working together. But just
Lowry has much more natural ability to improvise.
Yes, 100%.
And if there's one thing a team loves to build with, is a player who can improvise the transition, a defenseman that can change your team. And McAvoy is one of those players. Lindholm has shown that he can be that kind of player in a different kind of style. And Lowry seems to have the seeds for it. He's got this ability to, he told me at development camp that his main focus was closing on players more quickly and learning to shut them down better. I thought I saw
killing plays at the blue line before they even get in the zone.
Yeah, right. I mean, if that's your system, you know, I mean, if there's an opportunity to close out, then you do it more aggressively, and that's really, you know, from the more or less meter. He's I thought that was good. I think he's been good throughout camp that way. I've been pretty pleased with what I've seen from him from a defensive standpoint. I didn't really know what to expect because if you watched an Ohio State game, this guy was basically just getting the puck and doing whatever he wanted to do and making plays happen. And then because the game is so end to end and so helter-skelter at times that you didn't really get a sense of how he could play within a better structure. And this provides that. And he looks to me like he's picking up very quickly. And I feel like he's a guy who makes me feel like he's going to keep getting better as he goes here, which is great news for the Bruins because he's certainly got top four defensemen written all over him, down the road here.
I mean, I feel like he's gonna, even though he's looked like if they needed him, he could be NHL ready right now. I feel like I've seen that already out of him to this point. I certainly felt like he was the most NHL ready prospect at development camp this summer. And he's, everything I've seen out of him against NHL competition has not, driven that thought out of my head to this point. But I still think the plan with him, the best way to go about development wise going forward with him is to still let him go back to Providence for a month or two at the very least, get more experience in all situations, get more acclimated to the pro game, even than he did with his handful of games that he played last year. And then once he's, ready a few months mid-season, maybe he gets call-ups because of, injuries, whatever. But when he's ready to be permanently called up, then you have a chance to make a decision that's going to help your organization, and I really feel like,
maybe at the 3/4 pole, he can be a player that they feel like they can bring up, plug in permanently,
or even move some salary. Absolutely.
I think I'm not quite as confident and because I feel like there's more ebb and flow to that process. And I also look at guys like Johnny Boychuk. They let him bake an entire season down there. They let these guys, when you feel like, ooh, this guy's good, he could tell you. And I felt the same way about a different kind of player altogether. But you feel like a certain player's kind of ready to help them in certain ways, and then they'll let them play another whole season.
I think the situation with the Bruins, I feel like the best way to play it is if you're gonna bring up Mason Lowry when he's ready, right? I suspect that Matt Grzelcyk would be a guy that maybe get moved if Lowry ends up getting brought up.
Well, he's wearing the bullseye.
And the thing is, the longer you wait to move a guy like Grzelcyk, the less you're going to get back in trade. And I feel like a guy like Grzelcyk definitely has value, especially for teams that need puck-moving defensemen. That is going to be a good way to recoup some of the draft picks that you've traded away, recoup prospects that you don't have because you have a low-rated prospect system, a way to get some assets back that you have dealt away traditionally over the last couple of years. So I do think it may be a little earlier than you might suspect because there's another domino to fall when Mason Lowry comes up, barring, injuries being the reason that it happens.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a really interesting situation to watch. But the thing I really like about that, even though Love Matt Grzelcyk as a person, really like him as a player, like his puck moving abilities, appreciate what he's done for the Bruins in his time here. Obviously love his whole family, Charlestown people, you
sounds
can't
like
go
a
wrong.
thank you note.
You can't go wrong there. Well, no, but I also think
I've traded Grizz a few times.
The other side of that coin though, Mick, is that Mason Lowry is 6'4", 210 pounds. You have looked at defensive cores over the last few years that have eliminated you in the playoffs if you're the Bruins consistently because they are 6'2", 6'3", 210, 220 pounds.
And the Bruins water bugs cannot get inside on them.
No, across the board on the back end, they are trees, and they keep you away from the net. And I think
if their trees can skate, then that's really makes them dangerous.
Absolutely.
And that's what Lowry is. And
yes.
So you have an opportunity to upgrade your long view that way, then you got to take it, especially when you're not in the middle of screwing up a Stanley Cup run here, by trading the veteran for the rookie. In order to give the rookie his opening, it's more like, especially on defense, it's more a place where you're in the exact situation to play this out. I mean, let's face it. I don't know if Forboard has the mobility to play a matchup in a top four in a playoff series.
Right.
We didn't see it. Well, last year I know was a little bit of an asterisk because he was coming off injury and that was his first hockey in a long time. Grizz, we know that in certain matchups, physical opponents in the playoffs, he gets ragdolled if the puck's in Boston's end. So he's terrific going back to get it and making a play. But that's most of hockey, but it's not the most critical moment either. So, it's one of those things that's a little like Krug. He didn't have Grzelcyk speed, but he had a little more ability and with a stick and, offensively speaking.
Power play wise, certainly. Yep.
Yeah. So so it really, he's more physical than Grizz, but even so, when you have a guy he's taking up amount of cap space, the projection was a situation that you don't want to live with long term because it's getting too big for what he can do for you at certain points at the end when it's time to pay the piper. And so I'm with you on the long view of this. I just don't know if I'm as confident about the timeline. Yeah,
the NHL has changed. It's changed to the point where smaller defensemen can survive in the league during the season. They can be really productive, good seasons. Like there are more Krug, Grzelcyk type defensemen in the league now than certainly there were 20 or 30 years ago. And I think it's going to continue to be that way, where smaller players are having more success in the league, just virtue of it being a speed skill game, much more than a physicality game during the regular season. But as we've seen, that changes in the playoffs. Guys like Grzelcyk and Krug can get exploited defensively in the playoffs consistently and have a hard time staying healthy in the playoffs consistently. And I don't think that's going to change because it's a different game in the playoffs than it is during the regular season still for the NHL in the playoffs.
I think Claude Julien got a bad rap when it came to playing the kids.
Yep.
He left Torrey Krug in when Wade Redden was ready. And Torrey Krug had that amazing series against Lundqvist and the Rangers.
I remember. Yep.
But when he got to when they were playing him against Chicago, like Game 5, Chicago it was a line change, and Chicago set a trap in the middle of the ice, and Krug played the puck into it, and Chicago scored, and that was the game. And you live and die with the sword you choose, and that was what Julien chose. And going forward, even though they knew they had a player for the future, and he had an amazing series against the Rangers. But at the end of the line there, I didn't think that was the right move. And I'm not saying that would have worked out if it happened the way I wanted to see it happen, but it turned out not to be the right move.
All right. We still do not have a sponsor for our Twitter question of the week. So people get in contact with Guy Neer at CLNS and let's get a sponsorship for the Twitter question of the week here at the Pucks with Haggs podcast. But here it is from Totally Wilma on Twitter, WM. Why is Luke Toporowski cut from training camp already? And I will let you have a crack at this, Mick, but basically bottom line is, The one preseason game he had, he did not look anywhere near NHL ready. He really struggled, and that's
Buffalo.
Yes, when you get sent down pretty quickly, when you're among the first cuts at NHL camp, some of it is just a numbers game, but oftentimes it also is because you just you struggled mightily, so they send you down pretty quickly.
Buffalo had a lineup that was a lot like Boston's last night, which is Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So the Bruins Flyers home game, the Boston's lineup.
H. Thompson was out there.
That's right.
Skinner was out there. Yeah.
Allen played. I mean, they had some of their horses in that game, and Toporowski, I can't remember what the matchups were, but I do remember he was a bit of a hot mess, and there were things that just didn't go his way. Some of it was puck luck, some of it was kind of like, oops, bad decision, and now I look, now that's like I look like I'm, Lucy in the Chocolate Factory here, so it's just not, It was kind of like, on one hand, you hate like heck to take a guy and assign him after in a performance, a game like that, where it can sound so much like well, you're not an NHL. Nobody wants to be judged that way, and so that's a bitter pill for him. But the kid can skate, but his speed didn't look effective in that game, even when he had the puck. So I think that good. I mean,
he got an NHL two-way. He got an NHL two-way deal this offseason. So clearly they like him. And every report I had out of Providence last year was very positive about him. And he's a max effort kind of player that also has some offensive skill and can do a lot of things. Right. So it was disappointing after I'd heard so much about him in Providence to see the way that he played.
And it was a tough game. But
I also feel like a kid like that is going to be able to bounce back. Everything I hear about his makeup and who he is as a player, I think he's going to be fine, and he will bounce back from it. So I think this will end up being, a positive thing, because he's going to pick himself up and he's going to be even better the next time it happens. It's just,
and let's face it, with this lineup that the Bruins have and all the free agents they signed, one year, $1 million, 1 year, $1 million. This is not the end of the line for guys that get sent to Providence.
Not at all.
There's the more movement, the worse the team's playing, the worse the situation the season's starting to look. I get that part, but they're there for opportunities, and they may still get them. We'll see.
All right, Mick, tell people one more time where they can read your stuff.
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
Sure.
Rink Wrap blog is back in business. It's an independent thing, and the URL is Rink Wrap. Wrap is just RAP, not WR. It's not like shrink wrap. So it's Rink Wrap, MC as in my initials.com.
All right. Mick, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to thank our sponsors one more time. Factor Meals, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. Ready in 2 minutes. Head to factormeals.com and use /Haggs50 and use the code Haggs50 to get 50% off. And also let's thank Fanduel Sportsbook, $200 in bonus bets right now, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. You can bet on spreads, player props, over-unders, all kinds of stuff. You can just continue to bet that the Patriots are going to lose every week. That's what I do, and I've been a rich man making that betting against the Patriots and Mac Jones and Belichick right now. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and get right in the middle of the NFL action. Mick, one more time, thank you very much. I'm Joe Haggerty, your host. Thanks for listening. We'll see you at the rink.